Hello everybody and welcome to this edition of Under the Dome. I'm Frank Hutton, sitting in today for Teresa Apel. Joining me today, I have a very special guest in Brad White, Chairman of MDOT, and our own Senator Dean Kirby. Welcome, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
So happy to have you all this morning. I don't normally get to do this, so it's a little bit different for me. I watch it plenty, but it's a little different for me to do it here. But I'm glad to be a part and be able to talk to you fine guys. And welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be with
y'all. You like you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I was just thinking how rested I am today compared to the last few months of coming in here. How I'd be so tired and thinking about all the bills and all the things we have to do. And now that we're out of session, how relaxed.
Actually get a summer.
Yeah. Everybody breathes a sigh of relief.
Oh my God.
Out of session.
Yes.
You get a few minutes to enjoy some time, right? Do you do anything? I mean, committee meetings and things over the summer. You do a little bit.
I end up going, by being pro tem, I go to the Capitol 2 or 3 days a week.
Right.
But it's no pressure. It's just business stuff.
It's just business stuff. Yeah. I mean, you've got a few committees, I think, that meet.
Yeah, we do have, most of our committees do meet. The major committees do meet at least once or twice during the summer months.
Trying to get ready for the next.
Well, that's right. We're already requesting bills for next year. Can you believe?
Wow. And we're not even halfway. Well, I guess we are technically now halfway through 2024.
Yeah.
Wow. All right. So, Brad, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Glad to have you. You enjoying your time at MDOT?
I am. Today marks 3 years that I've been back as director.
Congratulations.
Started July 1.
And he does a great job. The best we've ever had. No doubt about it.
You're very kind. I appreciate it.
What do you want, Dean? Is that right?
We rely on this man a lot. He helps carry a lot of water.
Right.
Not just for his district, but for the state.
I know, right? We're fortunate to have him, and I appreciate
know about that. I just go to work and try to do my job.
Which is refreshing, which is great. So, Brad, this is your second time, I believe, at MDOT.
Yeah, I worked for Commissioner Dick Hall when Governor Fordyce appointed Dick in '99 during an election, and then he hired me to come to work to him as his assistant and dealt kind of with constituent services type matters in the Central District, and was there for, I guess, about 7 years or so until I went to work with Governor Barber at the party and all. But MDOT's a wonderful place to work, full of dedicated public servants, and there's not a doubt in my mind that my time there as a young man kind of helped build a foundation that I think benefited me in every other job I did. So when the opportunity came for me to come back, it was real special, kind of nostalgic, and opportunity to do that. So 3 years have gone by real quick, though.
They fly, don't they?
They do.
So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, just so people can kind of get to know you. How in the world did you find yourself?
Yeah, I want him to tell us. One thing I want him to talk about is his Washington experience, too, because that has really been beneficial to us at MDOT and the legislature. So
the connections he's having. I mean, you started out as a young man in the game of politics, and how did that happen for you?
The former mayor of Mendenhall, a guy named Ray Layton, who's been passed away now for nearly 30 years next year, had been involved in the Republican Party for years and had a friendship with the late Governor Kurt Fordyce. And when Governor Fordyce was running for governor the first time in '91, Mr. Ray got me involved. I was 14, got me involved in the campaign, and told my parents we're going to make a Republican out of this young man. And the rest is kind of history. I mean, he got me involved, and the governor was successful in winning, becoming the first Republican governor in the state's history. And then 4 years later was the first governor to ever succeed himself. And Mr. Layton passed away during the re-election campaign of the Fordyces, and Governor Fordyce just was very good to me after that, and was helpful. I didn't work for him per se, but was involved in the campaigns, and he helped me get involved further in the Republican Party. And then when he appointed Commissioner Hall, I was able to land a job there, and I'm proof that God takes care of fools and babies, because every door has been open. But went from there back to the party with Governor Barber as the state party chairman. And then when he left, I was fortunate enough, Stacy Pickering was state auditor then, and was looking for a chief of staff and hired me there. And I went there and was able to learn a lot about government because the auditor's office touches every facet of government, from the school districts to your local governments throughout the state, as well as federal programs. And then after a few years there, Senator Cochran offered me the opportunity to run his state offices and then ultimately go to Washington to be his chief of staff. And that was quite an experience and a great man to work for. Learned a lot under him. And when he retired, Senator Hyde Smith was appointed, and she asked if I would stay and help set up her office. And so I did. And then about a year and a half, 2 years after that was when Governor Reeves was elected, and he asked if I would be interested in coming home to help with the transition and serve as his chief of staff. And while I loved Washington, I loved Senator Hyde Smith, I was ready to be home and
Sure.
Took that opportunity to do that. And then within a couple of years, this position at MDOT happened to come open, and my name started being mentioned around. And I finally went to the governor and told him, look, if I'm asked, I would like to be able to apply for that because of my background with them and background in DC. I thought I could offer something to be of help, and ultimately it worked out that the commission hired me, and I've been there 3 years.
That's amazing.
So,
what a story.
yeah, and it's a great place to be. I feel confident that I'm where I need to be.
I would say, and like Senator Kirby talks about, your time in Washington, probably very valuable.
It is.
With the connections that you have now for MDOT.
Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but Senator Cochran was serving as chairman of appropriations in the U.S. Senate, and so me having some exposure to how the federal budget's crafted and dealing with the appropriations of federal agencies, DOT being one of them, the reauthorization of Federal Highway Administration, that allowed me to see what we do here from the federal perspective, which has been beneficial, I believe. So. It's been a good experience.
We might get into that just a little bit.
Sure.
Off camera, we were talking earlier. I want you to mention, you were talking about every job you applied for you never got, but somehow you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If I put in an application, somehow I never got considered. But like I said, I'm proof God takes care of fools and babies, because He's moved me. There's no way that you can look at my career and believe there's not an unseen hand that kind of moved through that, and I'm very grateful and blessed for it.
Absolutely.
I always heard it was fools and drunks, and
that might apply too.
and I don't drink, so that's
What are you saying, Dean? That's pretty funny.
That might apply too.
Okay, so out of that, I'm going to go a little bit out of order a little bit. So understanding the federal appropriation side of things, one of the things you want to talk about was how the funding model this time has changed for MDOT. Can you kind of explain to people like how MDOT is funded and how it's been forever, and kind of walk us through that?
MDOT is a unusual state agency. I mean, we are a state agency, but we administer a federal program, and we run a type of reimbursement program, if you will. Everything we do, every project we have to spend our state money that we generate through the state fuel tax and other sources of revenue. And as the Federal Highway Administration, as they're able to ascertain that we're doing things in accordance with their regulation and rules and standards, then they reimburse us, whether it's 80 or 90%, depending on the project. So we have an account that we keep about $150 million in, and it's kind of like the water in a river. It's never the same money one day after another, because the money is constantly going out, constantly coming in. So due to that setup, our ability to cash flow projects, whether that be maintenance or whether that be new construction, is vital to what we do, because that's just the way the model that's set up. And the last time our model was altered in a major way was 1987, when the 87 four-lane program came into being, and the fuel tax was adjusted in order to pay for the construction of all the new four-lane highways that we have. And since then, the legislature's been kind enough to provide things such as lottery and fees on electric and hybrid vehicles. There's been a lot of one-time money come to us that's allowed us to pay for big construction projects that were kind of sitting on a shelf. Senator Wicker, as the lead Republican at the time on Commerce and Transportation, was at the table when the last federal reauthorization of Federal Highway was being drafted, and he was able to get an extra $1 billion in that for the state of Mississippi in federal money, which is about $200 million a year. That's over a 5-year period. And so all those things together allowed us to restart the capacity program, restart our major construction program. And then a year later is when the economy changed, inflation hit, and the money just doesn't go as far as it used to. So we're working with our friends in the legislature to try to determine what's a common sense way that we can modernize the funding model that we deal with in a way to make sure that we have recurring revenue to keep the program functioning and keep moving our transportation system forward. So we look forward to having those conversations. In fact, I spoke with the Lieutenant Governor this morning about some of what the Senate's looking to do, and I know the Speaker of the House has appointed a committee that will deal with tax structure and other funding models, that I think this will be a major part of their discussion. So we look forward to the coming months of being able to be a part of that conversation and hope that it'll bring about a lot of fruit for us.
So you mentioned like you're basically working through the Federal Department of Transportation. So like, I guess budgetary reasons you kind of look at and kind of help walk me through this so that maybe just the common layperson can understand. Because you said it's basically you're managing a federal program. So in order to get projects qualified, what's that process that you start with to say, hey, we're gonna widen this road, or we're gonna extend this state highway or something like that? What's the process to push it up to the federal side and then to get the money back?
Well,
What's that process?
It all starts with the men and women that make up the Department of Transportation. We have a lot of really fine professionals, both in our maintenance forces, which are kind of our frontline first responders after storms and things like that, but also our engineering and accounting and professional staff that when a concept or a need is put on the table, they begin the work of crafting from their vantage point how best to move that from conception to actual cutting a ribbon on it and completing a project. Most people would be surprised to know that these big construction projects, because of the federal regulations that we deal with and the environmental process and all the other things that we have to follow through in order to access the federal money to move the project, the pre-construction phase could take as much as 8 years to move something from an idea to time to break ground. And then you've got another 2 or 3 years sometimes in order to build it. So again, that's the reason why having recurring revenue that allows us to cash flow a project through the life of that project is so important. About 12 years ago, the commission was faced with funding issues that caused the commission to basically put a moratorium on new projects like that in order to divert all the funds toward our maintenance needs, our paving needs. The taxpayers of the state have about a $66 billion asset in roads and bridges around the state that's on the state system. That's about 33,000 miles of roadway, over 500 bridges, and we have about a $1.4 billion budget with which to take care of all of that. And so while we have one of the bigger budgets in the state, we have a lot more to say grace over. That money doesn't go as far. But we're hopeful that these conversations are going to bring about the type of revenue stream that will allow us to continue these projects just like the West Rankin Parkway, which I can tell you, if it wasn't for this man right here, it would have never become an idea, and it certainly would have never been built.
Well, let's pivot into that. So let's talk about West Rankin Parkway. Okay,
I want to hear this myself.
Yeah, right. West Rankin Parkway has been kind of a sore subject around here.
I
right?
can imagine. It's been a sore subject at MDOT too.
And I remember the first ribbon cutting that we had on it, and that's been 10 years ago, I think now.
Yeah, groundbreaking
and all.
It was probably one of the first bills.
Yeah.
I did. It's been like, 30 years ago.
He's the longest serving Republican in the Senate, and it was one of his first
pieces of legislation. So you identified the need.
I did.
This is what we wanted to do.
Well, with the help
Who was
of...
mayor then?
No, 30 years ago.
Yeah, I was thinking to say it wasn't Mitch.
May have been Mitch, or either Vaughn Galloway.
Or Galloway. One of the two. It was either Galloway or Mitch,
Yeah.
right? So anyway, not to stop you, but so it
Well,
was your idea.
It started out as a LPA project, local public agency, where federal money would be involved, and the senator got a bill passed into law that allowed the funding of it to start it, to be expedited in a way. And also that upon its completion, it would become a state highway that the state would then take over all the maintenance on. And normally a brand new road, you would think that's pretty easy, especially going through a place where you don't have a lot of traffic and other things that would go into it.
Right.
But it just faced, it seems like, one problem after another. And so when I came back to MDOT 3 years ago, it was one of the first meetings I had with Senator Kirby and Mayor Wyndham and others that wanted to sit down and say, how do we bring this to life? And once again, we had to go back to Senator Kirby and say, if you can get a law passed that would establish this as a state highway now, then it would give MDOT more flexibility in being able to step in with funding from different sources, and I think we can get it built. So he went back and got the bill passed into law, and it became a state highway, and we began, and I'm happy to say on July 11th, we should open bids on it with the intention of awarding it at the next commission meeting at the end of this month. So I feel positive that we'll be able to move forward, assuming that we get good bids. I'm happy to report that there was a lot of interest in it. So we received multiple bids or multiple proposals that would go into it, which would normally indicate that we should get a satisfactory bid that would allow us to move forward with awarding the project at the end of the month. So it should be underway hopefully here pretty soon.
Well, that's fantastic, right? I mean, there's been a lot of money spent over there right now, and what happens to all of that?
Well, that's just was problems that I don't know that we'll be able to recoup. That was before my time, and I don't know all the details that went into it, and I hate to prejudge the decisions that were made by people that were sitting in my chair when I wasn't there to know all the facts that they were faced with.
Well, we had a lawsuit involved.
I know, right?
Someone thought we flooded their land because of that, and then we had some bad dirt. So,
yeah, a lot of bad dirt.
A lot of bad dirt.
But
you're going to fix all of that.
We feel like that we've got a plan now that would allow us to move forward. We've got some good contractors that are interested in it, and hopefully on the 11th we'll be able to let the contract, and then on the end of the month, I think it's the 23rd maybe, when the commission convenes at the end of the month, they'll award it, and we'll move forward. Which
is great. And there's been some stuff done, clearly, you know, on that road. There's that you can continue to use. I mean, obviously,
right.
You know, it wasn't ideal over 30 years that you've worked on this project, but I know that they put in some coming from, especially from the Flowwood end of it.
Right.
At Treetop, there's been a lot more that's actually been done that way that people may not realize, that they just don't see.
Well, we're going to go with the theory that all's well that ends well, and I have a feeling that we're about to land this plane safely and give the people of the area a product that they can be proud of.
So you awarded at the end of the month. What do you think best? You know, not holding you to a time frame.
Normally we get a good bid on the 11th. We'll award it. I think that's the 23rd. The commission would award it, and it normally takes a few weeks just to get all the paperwork and everything put in place in order to give a notice to proceed to the contractor.
Right.
So before the end of the summer, we should have work beginning again on the project. And the good news is this project goes through an area where most of it's not an area of traffic, where that's not an issue and things like that. And it should be one that's able to move forward at a quicker pace than, say, when you're building in the middle where people are trying to drive.
Oh, of course,
things like that.
So
yeah, I remember Commissioner Hall saying, "You'll be driving on it before I go out of office." His last year.
Right. Well, maybe he can be with us there in spirit. But,
Yeah.
But no, all joking aside, I can't overstate, and I'm not saying that just because he's sitting here. When it's built, they really should name it the Dean Kirby Parkway.
Well,
Because it would never have been able to, it would have never started, and I would have never had the tools at MDOT and the Commissioner Simmons and all that. Our hands would have been completely tied in our ability to step in the way we did to try to bring it to fruition, had it not been for him untying our hands legislatively. So
he's blaming it all on me, is that what it is?
No, not at all.
I'm for that. We should make this movement. This should be a movement at the ground at the opening. It should be christened.
Well, I'm embarrassed
Parkway.
I'm embarrassed to call him and ask about it. I've done it so many times. But yeah, I feel good about it. I really do. I feel good about it. I think it's really going to help the traffic flow. It's really going to help Lakeland Drive. And just think of the people that can get off of Lakeland and come through there and go Pearson Road, go across this new bridge that we have and go out to Florence and totally bypass all of that traffic on I-55 as well as Lakeland. It's really going to make a big difference.
It's a wonderful connector. It's going to be fantastic.
It really is.
And that's before you get into the potential for development. You know, so much of what we do is not just about moving traffic and goods safely and efficiently, but it's also about promoting economic and community development. And this is a project that'll be a great example
Oh, yeah,
of that.
we've-
I'm confident once it's
There's some people that are very interested in developing all of that property, so I feel good about it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And of course, as you just brought up, the new overpass, that was another one that had just kind of found its.
Well, I want to tell you, your mayor, Jake Wyndham, does a phenomenal job in working with the MPO of the area to secure funds, and then works with us well to make projects like that happen, probably as well as any mayor that we deal with in the state. I mean, he's good at making that work. He's got good cooperation from the legislative delegation to his board. And when you have that type of collaborative effort, it makes everything run a lot smoother. I mean, in spite of what anybody else might say, this is a team sport.
Sure.
And the mayor does a good job of working with MPO and us and the Federal Highway Administration in order to bring projects just like that to bear, because every time you can have a good project like that locally, it helps us because it takes pressure off of our system that we have to maintain.
And that project too, had just floundered and not, kind of found its footing really, I guess, to use a construction term, but it had been floundering for so long. And I don't think the general public really understands just how much goes into a project like that when you're involving a railroad, and it's just way more.
When you're doing any type of road project, you have to play the long game, especially where a railroad's involved.
Correct.
Because I mean, the railroads will always tell you we were here first, and you have to work with them. But you have to play the long game because there's so many different variables that we have to deal with, from environmental to survey to what type of soil you find to the unknown variables that pop up as you're traveling through. We had a project in North Mississippi that was delayed because of a certain type of bat that was found in the area. So there's a lot of things that I don't think the public understands that we have to navigate through. But
Well, I'm specifically talking about and mentioning, and I'm sorry, I was mentioning, like, you hear people get on Facebook or, on social media, and they're criticizing this, that, the other. We all deal with it, we all, and I read through a lot of these posts, they're talking about, oh, it's never going to get done, it's never going to, they spend all this money. And I'm thinking, you just don't have all the facts. You start, I call it just running off at the mouth, and you don't really know what you're talking about. You claim to, but you don't have all the facts. And the people that have all the facts are in the room that are making the decisions.
Well, people are normally down on what they're not up on.
Correct.
And so it's incumbent for us to try to provide the information to everybody so they can form, intellectual opinions based on all the information. But look, I'll be the first to admit, in the best of circumstances, we're a huge inconvenience to the public because everything we do is right in the middle of where people are trying to drive and go to work, get to home, and do all
I love the orange barrels. I love them. This progress.
It means it's progress.
And we're talking about this project and others. Of course, we have two chambers up there. We have the House and the Senate. And Gene Newman, Ray Rogers before him, and Gene Newman has really pushed and helped us with these projects over on the House side. And then, of course, Josh Harkins, being chairman of the Finance Committee, has really, really made a difference. Josh has done a good job in helping us.
No, and they have been very beneficial for Rankin County and Pearl. Absolutely have. Yeah. And we couldn't do it without them. And, of course, without cooperation from you.
Well, and while we're naming people like that, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Commissioner Willie Simmons.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He does a phenomenal job. He's chairman of the commission. On my way here, he called me and wanted to know, is there anything I need to be doing to help? What can I do? Or he'll call with certain needs and checking up on things. And he does a good job at what he does, but his support of the staff and his working with me to be sure that we are providing the staff with the resources and tools and flexibility to do the job as quickly and efficiently as possible, he makes life real easy for us.
Well, that's fantastic.
So we appreciate him.
So what is the staff at MDOT right now? How many do you employ?
We're roughly about 2,700 people. And for a long time, when I was hired 3 years ago, the three things the commission tasked me with was more money for employees, more money for projects, and improve the relationship with the legislature and our congressional delegation. And I feel like we've been able to do that. With regard to the staff, the importance of that, when I worked for MDOT 25 years ago, we had maintenance forces in all 82 counties. And so if a tornado came through, or if there was a dead deer in the middle of the highway or a guardrail, you had a team that you could send out to address with that. Due to our salaries not being adjusted for so many years, that team dwindled in number. And so the same group that used to manage one county was all of a sudden having to manage 3 or 4 counties. Wow. So our response time grew, and our ability to respond to the taxpayers was really hampered. So being able to adjust those salaries to where we could start building back those forces to serve better, I think has been tremendous. But again, back to the engineering staff, I mean, we were losing engineering staff to the private sector, and we were having to pay the private sector roughly $70-something million a year in order to do the work that we had to have done to carry out our mission, but we didn't have the personnel to do it. So the legislature and the state personnel board were tremendous in working with us to deal with those problems, and we've been able to build back our professional and maintenance staff to where I think we're able to deliver a product to the taxpayers at a much lower cost to them, and as well have a team of people that can respond to disasters and needs quicker. As far as money for projects, I mean, the legislature quit earmarking our federal program, which gives me the flexibility of moving the state money around to maximize the federal dollars that we get. The 3 sessions that they've done that for us, all 3 of those years, we've been able at the end of the federal fiscal year go back to the federal government and say, hey, we can use more federal money. If other states didn't use all of theirs, can we go after additional obligation authority? And this past year, we were able to get an extra $100 million in federal obligation authority due to them giving us that flexibility. And as far as relationships go, I go back to what we were saying about the public. People are down on what they're not up on.
Sure.
And so really, nothing's changed as far as the quality of work MDOT does, as much as I think we've just tried to pull the curtain back and allow the legislative leadership to see what's going on inside and to ask questions and to be armed with information to where they can have confidence in what we're doing with the money that they give us.
So it's a more working together instead of...
Yeah, and if I do something that he doesn't like, he lets me know. and I let him know.
But that's refreshing, is it not?
Oh, it is. It's good to have friends in high places.
No, I agree with that. But it sounds like you've accomplished that third goal, which would be to have a better working relationship with the legislature. We've
accomplished it, certainly. Yeah,
right.
Like I said, it's been a team sport, and we've got good people and leadership. There's no one under the Capitol dome that's anti-transportation. Sure. It's just a matter of we've got a lot of competing interest for the limited resources that they have to appropriate out. But it's like I was telling somebody the other day, I said, it doesn't matter how good your health insurance is if the ambulance gets stuck in traffic on the way to the hospital. Exactly. And it doesn't matter how much money we put in public education if the buses cease to be able to cross the bridges in the state. So we are a core function of government, and I'm excited about the level of interest the legislative leadership is giving to hopefully the coming year addressing our funding model so that we can have a more diversified, reliable, recurring, dedicated stream of revenue that would allow us to move this program forward in a way that I think the taxpayers expect us to.
Yeah, and I think our cities and counties have become more educated on shovel-ready projects.
I agree. Yeah,
than they used to. We want money, we want to do this. Now they come to you with all the plans, exactly how much it's going to cost, and saying this is what we've done to get to this point.
Instead of bringing you an idea,
that's right.
They bring you an actual project that's put together.
A project that's well planned.
Right. And I guess would you attribute that maybe just a change in leadership all around the state? I think so. Like you mentioned Mayor Wyndham, he comes in here and he just starts changing things up. But I mean, would you say it's because of...
I contribute a lot of that to our Lieutenant Governor, to be honest with you. Lieutenant Governor, if you come in with a project and say you need $10 million, he wants to know where it's going and how you came up with that number.
He wants to see a written plan and where did you get those numbers right.
As I tell our mayors, if you want to talk to the Lieutenant Governor about a project, you better have it broken down as to the actual expense. And if you come in and ask for $10 million, he thinks you don't know what you're talking about. If you come in with $10,517.37, then he thinks you know what you're doing.
Well, it's like this morning when I had a conversation with the Lieutenant Governor. He was saying, I'd like something that shows the the funding needs you have, but also I'd like for y'all to give us ideas of where can we get the funding, you know, and try to put a plan together that's something
That's right.
that's more than just a concept.
Because Mayor Wyndham's going to come to you with a plan and a dollar amount.
That's
And
right.
it's going to be, but then on your side, you're thinking, okay, great, love your idea, and then you're all something. Now, how am I going to fund it?
Right.
So you're having it, and then of course, our senator over here
I try to help.
tries to help with the funding. So you're changing the model, the funding model. Is that you finding that difficult to do in the Senate?
Not really. Not really. It's kind of refreshing, if you want to know the truth. It's always been difficult, and it continues to be difficult. But working with Brad and Willie Simmons, it makes it a little easier for us. I don't mind telling you than what we used to do.
Right.
I mean, he has a very powerful position. I'm going to tell you, he's a major influence on the commissioners. And he'll deny all that and say, I work for, you know, being humble. But
Sure.
I'm telling you, he is the man that helps us put things together that make it happen.
Well, I think it's great that, you know, the general public just gets to meet you a little bit and kind of find out how you do things. But I do, before we get out, I do want to talk about some other there's other things that MDOT's working on, just not right here. What are some of the other larger projects that you're actually funding throughout the state?
Well, the legislature gave us one-time money that was able to get major projects that we had ready for construction off the shelf. So it was like Highway 49 in Harrison County in Gulfport, adding lanes it. Highway 19 over in Neshoba County, we'll finish 4-laning it. There's a new interchange over in Flowers on I-20 that will help with that area.
DeSoto County.
I-55 in DeSoto County, which is a huge need
That's
there.
right.
And this would be just one, I mean, you're talking about $1 billion project in its totality.
Wow.
But we do think we've received enough money to begin that first phase of it. We'll break ground next month on a Highway 15 widening in Tippah County, which was about $130 million
Goodness.
project. And I feel like I'm leaving Highway 90 in Jackson County. So there were huge $100+ million projects from the Gulf Coast all the way up to the Tennessee line that we had ready, but no funding mechanism with which to go on and build them. So when the legislature found themselves with one-time money, the decision was made, which I think was a smart one, that let's not put one-time money on reoccurring expenses like pre-construction. Let's go on and build the ones that are ready and get them out of the way so that what we're cash flowing can hopefully bring more projects to fruition. And I think that that's worked. Now, in the long term, when you're talking about contractors needing to staff up and buy equipment and do all the things necessary to build these jobs, they're going to have to see that funding is not just one time, it's something that they can count on year after year before they go take out a several $1 million loan on a crane or something like that that they've got to pay off. So, I mean, we've come a long, long way from where we were 3 years ago, but we've still got a long way to go, I think, before we've got something that's in place that will allow everything to function the way it's supposed to. And keep the projects moving, because ultimately
the 84 project that they did for 4-laning in Mississippi was wonderful. It was one of the best things that ever happened in the state as far as safety and transportation. The only thing they didn't do is allow for maintenance. And so we've tried, especially the last few years, we've tried to create recurring revenue for them for maintenance. So they won't have to use all this other money for new projects on maintenance. And I think it's working out.
This past session, the legislature gave us $50 million of the ARPA money, and then also put a provision in that any of the ARPA money the state had that wasn't obligated by, I think, October 1st would sweep to our maintenance fund, because that money has to be obligated by the end of this calendar year and then spent by the end of the federal fiscal year.
So
26.
you have to spend it.
And our paving
or another
program,
state will get it.
Or another state will get it.
Our paving program just happens to be one of the unique places in state government that you could guarantee, because we have such a backlog, that we could obligate it and then push it out as long as the contractors could handle the amount of work that we're putting into the street. You know, so the legislature's been very good to us, but I'm very happy with where we are, and I'm excited about looking at some fundamental changes that can be done that will be felt long after
you're
gone.
right, which is we always talk about we want to leave it better than we found it.
Right.
Obviously, we want to make sure that, because I say the same thing here at the City of Pearl. Our goal is always to leave it better than we found it. So that
Right.
the next guy coming in doesn't have the struggles we have. They can move on because they'll have their own struggles. They
Right.
certainly don't need to keep dealing with the ones in the past.
Right.
And it sounds like what you're describing.
Right. We've got a unique situation that for once with the department, everybody's pulling the wagon in the same direction. We have a lieutenant governor, a speaker, legislative leadership, a congressional delegation, all that's interested in transportation and helping us. We have a commissioners that I don't remember in the last 6 months that this commission's been in place, I don't remember a vote that wasn't unanimous. All
Wow.
three
Yeah.
commissioners are working together under the leadership of Chairman Simmons, and they just do a phenomenal job and give us the support we need as staff to carry out the day-to-day operations. And we're in a good situation, But like when I graduated high school, my grandmother was telling me, "You do what makes you happy because money won't make you happy." And she was really hounding me about that. She left the room, and I didn't realize my grandfather had been listening, but he was reading the paper, and he put the paper down when she got out of earshot. And Papa said, "That's true, money won't make you happy, but the lack of it dang sure make you miserable. So you better find something that you can pay your bills with." And so that's kind of where we are. We want to be happy, but the lack of funding is going to make us pretty miserable. So we're looking forward to seeing that model.
That's a wonderful story. Please share the one about what your dad said about you having jobs. Please share that story. Give everybody.
As the senator knows, my father has fighting stage 4 lung cancer, very successfully for the last 4 years. He was supposed to be dead 2 years ago, but he's doing well. Was mowing grass this week.
Wonderful.
But during the time he was taking treatment, one day it was my time to take him to a treatment. So we go to a place where I have to give a speech, and they had one of those bios, they read out, and they told all the jobs that I'd done. And when it was over, Dad's a retired sheet metal contractor, and we get back in the truck, and he said, "Look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do, but if I were you, I wouldn't have them read that out anymore." And I was like, "Why?" And he said, "Well, all that tells me is you can't hold a job." Our parents have a way of keeping us humble. So,
That's so fun.
Yeah.
But you have done a fantastic job, and your experience just speaks for itself. And I can see the dynamic works well here too. Between you and the
Absolutely.
senator and the funding. Is there anything else that I'm missing that we need to discuss? Because this has been a wonderful conversation.
Well, I can't think of anything.
No.
No, I think it's been wonderful having y'all here.
Well,
thank you so much for spending just a little bit of time with us. We want to have you back.
We'll do
Well, I thought the people of not just Pearl, but Rankin County and all those that see this needed to get to know him.
Yes.
And what a great job he's doing for us.
And I think he's doing a fantastic job.
Thank you.
We
I
really do.
appreciate that.
I would be remiss though, because I want just dawned on me. There's one thing you mentioned just a little bit ago. You didn't mention it here, but y'all do a podcast.
We do.
Y'all do a
yeah.
podcast. So we were talking about people that don't, that are down, don't know, the up.
It's called The Extra Mile.
Mm-hmm.
We have it's on. You can find it on MDOT's YouTube page,
Mm-hmm.
and of course we promote it on social media as well. But our public affairs division does that, and it all goes back to the concept that we were saying about people are normally down on what they're not up on.
Mm-hmm.
So we have legislative leaders come on. The governor's been on. Our members of our congressional delegation, as well as members of the MDOT staff, professional staff that can come in and explain what's happening with certain projects or
Get in the weeds.
how things work.
Right.
And it's really been amazing at how well it's taken off. Our public affairs team does a phenomenal job with it. I think it's very professionally done. And I think it conveys information that can be useful to the public, but also useful in helping us maintain good relationships around by virtue of just making sure we're being transparent and
Right.
putting all the information on the table for people to see.
And I think,
They also have an app that you can get on for traffic control. If you want to tell them about that.
The
that's-
MDOT traffic app, gomdot.com. That you can access that and look at all over the state. It's got access to the cameras that we have all over the state where you can see what's happening on the roadway. It carries all the media alerts that would tell you if there's a accident somewhere or if there's construction going on somewhere that would slow you down. So it's a great app to get, but it's just the MDOT traffic app that they can find pretty easy. Download it free and utilize it. I would encourage everybody to use it.
So
I use it.
I've used it a lot.
If a citizen does not know what's going on in the state on transportation, it's not your fault. 'Cause you're putting out the information.
We're
It's
doing
whether-
our best. But like the other day, I went to the coast for the Municipal League Conference.
Yes.
And the first thing I did was go to the app to see what was happening on 49 all the way from Jackson to the coast to see if there was any places I needed to
I know
avoid.
we've laughed about 49 as long as I can remember. You know that 49 is under perpetual construction. It just never stops. And you've got a project on 49 right now.
Yeah, we're resurfacing from Jerry's Fish House down to the Simpson County line, which
Right.
that was a stretch that was in bad need of rehabilitation. But from Jerry's Fish House north to the Stack, you know, that was a major project, adding lanes and stuff. We've heard a lot of positive comments.
Oh, my gosh.
From it after it's been completed. You know, I used to commute from Simpson County to Jackson, and when you got to Florence, about
It stopped.
Jerry's Fish House, that's where it would come to a stop. And that project's done wonders to move traffic. It was amazing what just one lane would do. Now, unfortunately, every time we add lanes like that, I mean, that's kind of like solving being fat by letting your belt out of loop. I mean,
Sure.
you're going to grow to it.
Sure.
And so, again, not to keep beating a dead horse, but that's why we've got to make sure that we have a funding model that would allow us to stay ahead. We need to be where we can, you know, not react to what's happening with our traffic, but to try to be proactive in our
Right.
approach to it.
Right.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Instead of building something that is obsolete once you get finished,
Right.
be proactive to where you grow into what you build.
Right.
Right.
And
Which
we've
is,
done that on 49 and Lakeland Drive.
Yes.
That's right.
which both of those look
We've
fantastic.
still got more to do on Lakeland too, as well as 49.
And then all those projects you're doing across the state, we kind of failed to mention this, but the economic development, that's going to drive a huge, I guess, an impact there for the state, you know, just on revenue, tax revenue.
Right.
Yeah.
Because that opens up the ability for more businesses, and I'm sure, right, some of those projects
Right.
that you
Oh,
mentioned that are
absolutely.
going around the state probably do have an economic piece to it somewhere. Like, is there one that comes to mind?
Well, I mean, every prospect that the Mississippi Development Authority has announced, you know, there was some conversation that had to be had with us about the improvements that needed to be made to the transportation system in that area in order for them to be able to get their goods in and out efficiently. When you look at when Toyota came, I mean, we built a whole new interstate and a system
Yeah.
up there for them. So as
Right.
Senator Trent Lott used to say, if they can't get here, they're not coming. And so it's a core function of government that's very basic to,
That's
to
very
everything
basic,
that we
right?
do. You know.
Sure, I mean,
Common
that's
sense, you know.
common sense stuff, right? I mean, it's common sense.
And I realize we're on Pearl TV, but we got a major problem in Brandon right now in downtown traffic.
No, we love Butch. What's yeah?
He's a good mayor.
Hey, you're right.
And but yeah, hopefully we're going to do a bypass around that. So
Oh, are you talking about doing a bypass kind of around that,
from 18 coming around.
coming around?
And we have one project you mentioned, Flowood, continuing the widening of Lakeland out to
That's correct.
towards
There's-
the northwest Rankin.
well, we got
that
like
area.
what 6 schools out there. And,
I know, right?
And
All the way to
it's-
Pisgah.
And traffic pretty much stops. People trying to turn into the schools and all.
That's
So
a major priority of Mayor Rhodes.
It
And,
is.
And as you know, he's very tenacious, and so
He
we
is.
have that on the list, and we're doing all the pre-construction
Sure,
phase for
sure.
it. But again, that's one of those that once we get it to construction, we're going to have a way to pay for it. But there's a lot of needs around the state, but particularly here in the metro area.
Well, we do love our sister cities. I mean,
well, yeah, and a lot
yeah.
of people work in those systems.
Right, and they're all from Pearl. They just moved.
well, they really are. I found that out.
They're
Or
all
either
from,
Simpson.
right.
Simpson County.
They
We have a
probably
lot
grew
of
up
people
right,
in Simpson
right,
County.
Right, they all probably grew up right here and moved because yeah, I get it. My totally off topic and not to say about it, but I can relate. My aunt graduated from Mississippi State, and all of my family went to Mississippi State, and she graduated from State, got her CPA, ended up working for Ole Miss. I went to Ole Miss obviously because I had a family member working there, so it just made it cheaper for me. But the running joke was, that Ole Miss had to hire a state grad because they couldn't do their own books.
Yeah.
So that was in my family, that was the running joke.
Do you know, when I worked for Commissioner Hall 25 years ago, the number one question we got from this area was, when are you going to complete the 4-lane of 25 from Jackson to Starkville? And the number one question we would get from the Delta, which he
Yes.
also represented, was, when are you going to get Highway 82
Right.
completed? across the states.
Right.
Transportation touches everything.
Everything
does.
goes to Mississippi State.
No, right. That's pretty fun. Well, guys, I have enjoyed it very much. I know the citizens will enjoy hearing about this and learning about you, and we wish you continued success over there. And thank you, Senator, for bringing him in this morning. So, guys, it's been a fantastic conversation that we've had today. So please tune in every single week when we bring you new editions of Under the Dome. I want to thank our special guest this morning, Brad White, and I also want to thank Senator Dean Kirby. But until next time, y'all have a great day.